This time, I'll discuss to you the theory of cognitive development by John Piaget. So let us define first cognitive theory. So cognitive theory explains personality as a reciprocal interaction among behavior involving observation, cognition that includes self-efficacy and environment. So cognitive theory of development focuses on the way people interpret things that manifest in their behavior. So ano yung iniisip natin, ito yung mga magiging batayan ng ating mga ginagawa or mga actions. No? And magiging basihan rin ng ating personality with, of course, environmental factors. To start with, John Piaget in 1896-1980, born in Neuchâtel, Switzerland, was the eldest child and was precocious or bright for his age. He was strongly interested in seashells initially. Piaget was interested in philosophy, psychology, and religion. He worked with Simon of the Simon-Bennett intelligence testing. But Piaget was more concerned with how children learn rather than distinguishing right from wrong. So this is the line of interest of Piaget, wherein he focuses more on how children learn rather than talking about morality. His academic work forms the basis for our current educational system. So Piaget has a big contribution, especially in the educational system of young people. He married Valentine Châtenay in 1923, and together they had two daughters followed by one son. After a lifetime of efforts, he was known as one of the most significant psychologists of the 20th century. So, this is the stages or the period that was introduced by John Piaget. First is the sensory motor period or stage. This lasts from birth to 2 years of age, and the child here uses his or her senses and his increasing motor skills to explore the environment. So in this time, child becomes very curious about things. So he uses or she uses his senses like mouth, hands, eyes, ears, and so on. He begins to use language to imitate and represent environment. So in here, the child starts to say mama, papa, no? And so on. So in this stage, there is what we call serration. Serration is the placing or groups of like objects together. So example, color red will be placed together. Color blue will be placed together. So as what you have seen in the picture. Another thing in this stage is the object permanence or person permanence is when the child learns that an object or person continues to exist even when not in sight. So remember the peekaboo. So the child no, interprets that even if he cannot see the object still exists. Another thing in the sensory motor stage or period is the term egocentric. Egocentric is when the child is aware only of himself and his own likes, dislikes, and wants. So in here, the child would always say, akin to, sa akin to, amin to. He cannot see other people's perspective. So very egocentric or focus on the self. Another thing is assimilation. So this is another concept that is present in the sensory motor period or stage. Assimilation is the incorporation of new ideas into the existing schema or concept. Example, a ball. So when say assimilation, child, whether it is a volleyball or a softball, for him or her, it is still a ball. No distinction. Another concept is accommodation. Accommodation is to adopt old schema and develop new schema for interacting with it. When a child adapts his or her existing ideas to fit new understanding, such as for example, So these are different kinds of ball. The child in here understands and, and know what's the difference between a volleyball, a basketball, a softball, and so on and so forth. So in the process of assimilation, the child doesn't know its distinctions, specifically on the example, which is the ball. But in the process of accommodation, the child knows its difference and its purpose. So according to Piaget, assimilation plus accommodation results to learning. Second stage or period of which Piaget introduced was pre-operational period. It lasts from 2 to 7 years of age, and the child can speak and print words. His memory and imagination develops, and his thinking is often not logical, most egocentric thinkers. He learns that symbols represent something else. So in here, the child can utter sentence, and not fragment at all. So he or she uses his imagination to view things in different manner. But of course, he is not logical or not an abstract thinker. So here, a stop sign means to stop. The child sees stop. So, kung ano yung ginagawa niya, pag sinabi ng magulang na you stop, then automatically the child will follow the thing or the things that he or she hears, and nothing more. He or she will not analyze or ask why he or she is doing such thing. Another stage of which Jean Piaget formulated it was the concrete operational period or concrete operations period. In here, it lasts 7 to 11 years of age, approximately. The child has the ability to do simple math and measurement with manipulatives. So in here, the child starts to think logically. He begins to understand the cause and effect of things. Say, for example, if he or she will not do good in his or her studies, there is a great possibility that his or her parents will not be giving her reinforcements or rewards. So that's the interpretation of the child during this stage. He can think about real, concrete things in systematic ways, but cannot understand abstract concepts. He is no longer egocentric or self-focused, but he views people's point of view. So it means to say that in this stage, the child can also think of what he can contribute to others. So hindi na siya focus sa ako lang, but sa kanyang mga caregivers or sa mga significant others gaya ng kanyang mga magulang. So, iniisip niya rin, iniintindi niya yung mga taong nakapalibot sa kanya. So, in here, the child starts to count numbers, to do mathematical operations, and others. So, there is a concept here under the third stage, the conservation concept. Conservation means the amount, weight, volume, and number of things stays the same even when the outward appearance of objects or group is changed. So here's an example. This is a coin wherein the child can assess or know that these coins are still the same, and he or she can count how many coins available. So in here, a short glass of water is the same amount as a tall glass of full water. So the child can now initially understands that even if the glass of water differs in size, but it's still the content, it's still water, a full glass of water. Another thing discussed in this stage is reversibility. So reversibility means an action that can be undone or reverted to its previous state. Say for example, this is a ball of clay. A ball of clay can be made into a clay bowl, but it can be reformed into a ball of clay again. So it can be reversible, no? Or, yeah, reversible. Can be reversible. It can be made or reformed to its original state. The next thing, the fourth stage is the formal operations period, where it lasts from about 11 to 15 years of age. A child is able to think and reason in purely abstract terms in his head or mind without having concrete items in front of him. He is able to use logic and abstract thinking. He questions previously accepted thoughts, ideas, and values. So in here, the child is very curious that I can do it on my own and this should be done instead of this. So meron na siyang mga nagsisimula na ang bata na maging abstract thinker, no? So, for example, if gagawin ko to, ano yung magiging consequence? So, meron na siyang iba't ibang perspective at opinion sa mga bagay-bagay. So, that's it for the different stages of John Piaget's cognitive theory. I hope you have understood or understand such discussion. And I'll discuss to you Psychosocial Theory of Development by Erikson. So to recap, Erikson was considered as one of the psychodynamic theories. So psychodynamic theories, if you can still remember, focuses on the different factors that affects the behavior of a person. But Erikson focuses on psychosocial factors. So, Erikson, biography. He was born in Germany on July 15, 1902 and died May 12, 1994. He was an abandoned child by a Danish father, and he was raised alone by his mother, Carla Abrahamsen, a young Jewish woman. And later, his mother married Theodor Humberger, his pediatrician. The fact that he was an abandoned child bothered him a lot. He was also a dropout of high school and spent time traveling in Europe and studying art. Erich Humberger Erikson. He viewed man as optimistic and idealistic individuals. His theory focuses on social rather than biological factors, of which it is known as psychosocial theory. The psychosocial focuses on affective, cognition, and social factors affecting personality. His theory opposed Freud's psychosexual stages as human interaction between genes and the environment. So Freud really focuses his study on biological factors, biological drives, or sexual drives. But Erikson considered it very shallow, since there are other things for him that contributes to an individual's personality, such as the way he or she interacts with his or her environment. So to continue, Erikson met Sigmund Freud, and later studied psychoanalysis with Freud's daughter Anna. He studied young people, of which he is very interested, especially on their cultures. His theory, again, focuses on psychosocial, which discuss personal, emotional, and social factors affecting individuals' personality. And Erikson is an ego analyst, which refers to a relationship between individual and the world, or the self and the world. So, remember the person in environment situation in social work, the pie perspective. The person relates with his or her environment that constitutes his or her personality. So, he completed his training at the time Hitler came to power to escape the tension in Europe. He went to the United States. Erikson's work is based on 5 assumptions. So, first assumption is that people in general have the same basic needs. So, he generalizes people's needs. So, every one of us, regardless of our status, we all have the same need. according to Erikson. Second assumption is that personal development occurs in response to these needs. So our personal development, like our uh, our desire for achievement, responses to these different basic needs that we have. Third is development proceeds in stages. So for Erikson, um, since it he considered development as stages, you cannot proceed to another stage unless you satisfy the first stage or you overcome different struggles in the first stage. Movement through the stages reflects changes in an individual's motivation. So as you grow higher to the stages that was formulated by Erikson, he believes that you also have different motivations. Say, for example, when you were a child, you have different motivations. Others wanted to grow, to work, to help their families. And when you grow old, or when you have a job, you have different, or you have another motivation, such as you want to have an intimate relationship, you want to help others, and so on and so forth. So that is the assumption of Erikson. And the last, each stage is characterized by psychosocial challenge that presents opportunities for development. So those are the different assumptions of Erikson's psychosocial development theory. Another thing, Erikson described the time an individual experiences a psychological challenge, a crisis. So for Erikson, the struggles of the different stages that a person experiences is called a crisis. Okay, a positive solution of a crisis means a favorable ratio of positive to negative psychosocial traits emerges. A negative resolution results in individuals seeing the world as unpredictable and threatening. So for Erikson, if the person cannot overcome the crisis, the person will feel that the world it is unsafe to live in. Okay. This does not mean that people who successfully resolve the crisis never have negative thoughts or distrust another person. In general, they see the best in others and have a positive orientation towards life. So for Erikson, people, even if they overcome the crisis or the challenges in each stage, it doesn't mean that they don't have negative thoughts. They have probably, but they considered it as a challenge to move forward and look at the best side of themselves and the good thing about people. So that's how he viewed negative perspective or thoughts among people. So let us move forward to these stages. First is the infancy stage, where it approximately starts from birth to 2 years old. The the discussion or the basic discussion here is trust versus mistrust, or the highlights of this stage. The first stage of Erikson's theory of psychosexual development occurs between, again, birth and 1 year old, and the most fundamental stage in life, the most important stage in life. Because an infant is utterly dependent, the development of trust is based on dependability and quality of the child's caregiver. So, because the child is, again, very dependent and dependable to his or her caregivers, the caregivers or the parents in particular the have the strong responsibility over the child's development, physically, emotionally, and other aspects of child's development. Second, if a child successfully develops trust, he or she will feel safe and secure in the world. Caregivers who are inconsistent, emotionally unavailable, or rejecting contribute to the feelings of mistrust in children they care for. Failure to develop trust will result in fear and a belief that the world is inconsistent and unpredictable. So, in here, again, if the child feels secure from the caregivers, he or she will develop more his or her self-esteem or self-confidence. While on the contrary, if the child develops mistrust, he or she sees the world as unpredictable or violent. So in here, this stage considers self-direction and independent stage. Second stage is early childhood, from approximately 1.5 to 3 years old. Here, autonomy versus shame and doubt is uh, the very virtue of this stage. So, it secures or securely attached children next face the challenge of autonomy or doing things on their own. So the child in here wanted to become independent on little things that he or she can do. So first the child learns to feed and dress themselves or having a toilet training. So in here, the child would say, I want this dress, I want to wear this, I want to eat this. This is this stage. The second is the key challenges that child faces during this stage relates to exerting independence. So independence is really the highlight of this period or stage. Like Freud, Erikson believed that toilet training was a vital part of this process. However, Erikson's reasoning was quite different than that of Freud's. Erikson believed that learning to control one's body functions leads to a feeling of control and a sense of independence. So, he agrees with Freud that toilet training is very much necessary in this stage, but however, bodily movements or bodily functions is a manifestation of a feeling of control and a sense of an individual's independence. Another thing is that other important events including gaining more control over food choices, toy preferences, and clothing selection. Next, children who successfully complete this stage feel secure and confident, while those who do not are left with a sense of inadequacy and self-doubt. So, again, if the child is successful in this stage, he feels or she feels having independence, meaning he or she gains security and confidence. While, on the other hand, the child feels inadequacy and self-doubt, or inferior when independence or autonomy was not or is not developed. Next stage is the preschool stage, 3 to 5 years old. Initiative versus guilt. Initiative is characterized by an exploratory and investigative attitude that results from meeting and accepting challenges. So, first, preschool children encounter a widening social world and a lot more challenges. In here, the child, if you are familiar with separation anxiety, this is very common since the child is starting to make new friends, and starting to go to school. Children are asked to assume responsibility for their bodies, their behavior, their toys, and their pets. So, if you have noticed, other parents would tell when the child goes to school, oh, please take care of your things, your school things, like your paper, your pencil. So the child assumes responsibility over their things. Children make enormous cognitive leaps, and those developing abilities provide the impetus for exploration in all areas of their lives. So in here, the child would always ask why, how, bakit nagaganito ang mga bagay-bagay. So they are very curious in this stage, especially that they are into formal schooling. Children who are given the freedom to explore and experiment with adults to answer their questions tend to develop initiative. So this is very crucial. Those who are restricted and whose initiative is considered to be a problem tend to develop a sense of guilt about pursuing their interest. So in here, if the child is restricted for doing, for exploring things, he or she might have troubles in terms of building initiative. Children who are successful at this stage feel capable and able to lead others. So, according to Erikson, people who have strong, no, initiative, or high initiative rather, develops the leadership qualities. Those who fail to acquire these skills are left with a sense of guilt, self-doubt, and lack of initiative. Another, okay, so in here, elementary school, learning skills or mastery within self stage, and Oedipal or electrocomplex or complexes are present. The next stage is the school age stage, 6 to 11 years old. Industry, where industry and inferiority takes place. Industry is the enjoyment of mastery and competence through success and recognition of one's accomplishments. In here, the child really, focuses his or her attention to recognitions and accomplishments at school, involving to new things, mastering new things, and new skills. This stage covers the early school years from about approximately age 5 to 11 years old. Through social interactions, children begin to develop a sense of pride in their accomplishments and abilities. So if they are recognized, they feel an overwhelming confidence and self-satisfaction. Children who are encouraged and commended by their parents and teachers develop a feeling of competence and belief in their skills. Those who receive little or no encouragement from parents, teachers, or peers will doubt their ability to be successful. So in here, the child, according to Erikson, probably develops self-doubt or strong inferiority since they are not recognized of their efforts. Another stage is the adolescent stage where it lies approximately 12 to 18 years old. In here, identity versus confusion is evident. In the adolescent years, youth develop a desire for independence from parents, achieve physical maturity, and are concerned with the question, who am I? Okay, so physical maturity, puberty stage. First is that adolescents experience major physical, intellectual, and emotional changes. Many go through growth spurts and their coordination often doesn't keep up with their bodies. Adolescents experience new sexual feelings and are not quite know how to respond. They are frequently confused of their emotions, no? Nagkaka-crush, sabi nila nagkaka-puppy love. So this is the stage of adolescent. They are caught in awkward position of wanting to assert their independence, yet longing for stability of structure and discipline. So in here, according to Erikson, the child or an adolescent wanted to explore, but he or she is restricted because he or she cannot, don't have stability, no? Wala pang trabaho, so may marami pang restrictions. Those who receive proper encouragement and reinforcement through personal exploration will emerge from this stage with a strong sense of self and a feeling of independence and control. Those who remain unsure of their beliefs and desires will be insecure and focus about themselves and the future. So, in here, pag hindi mo na-overcome yung crisis, you will feel confusions and insecurities as you grow old. Another thing, in the identity versus confusion stage, this is the youth age fear of being rejected stage. Okay. Another stage developed by Erikson is the young adulthood stage, approximately 19 to 40 years old, where intimacy versus isolation takes place. First is that a person with a firm sense of identity is prepared for intimacy or giving the self over to another. So meaning looking for a partner, looking for stability. Okay. This stage covers the period of early adulthood when people are faced with developmental tasks of forming intimate relationships. So probably in this stage, the person has a stable job and looking forward to creating or procreating, no? Looking forward to becoming a parent or looking for a partner. Giving for the sake of giving without expecting something in return characterizes a positive resolution of this crisis. Erikson believed that it was vital that people develop close, committed relationships with other people. Those who are successful at this step or stage will develop relationships that are committed and secure. Remember that each step builds on skills learned in previous steps. So more on skills focus, the previous stages in the early childhood, the preschool stage, and so on and so forth. Erikson, in here, believed that a strong sense of personal identity was important to developing intimate relationships. So, kung na-build ka na sa first stages ng development on skill development, sabi ni Erikson na meron kang strong sense of personal identity at walang pag-aalinlangan for an intimate relationship. Studies have demonstrated that those with poor sense of self tend to have less committed relationships. So, ito yon. Ang tao ay magiging, no, sinasabi nilang, no, yung hindi committed, no, sa isang relationship, dito yon. Kung hindi daw siya sa first stages ng kanyang child's development, hindi na-build yung kanyang personal identity. So, maghahanap siya ng relasyon. Hindi siya magiging content. And more likely to suffer emotional isolation, loneliness, and depression. So, to continue, intimacy in relationship stage. Last is the generativity versus stagnation. Second to the last. Generativity versus stagnation. Middle adulthood, 40 to 65 years old. The key characteristics of generativity are creativity, productivity, and concern for and commitment to guiding the next generation. So, ito yung returning back stage. During adulthood, we continue to build our lives, focusing on career and family. Generative adults tried to contribute to the betterment of society by working for principles such as cleaning physically the environment, a safe and drug-free social world, and adherence to the principles of freedom and dignity for individuals. So, ito yung naka-build ka na ng career, naka-build ka na ng family, you are now stable, and you try, in this stage, you are trying to be productive in terms of giving back, no? By helping others, by indulging into advocacies, no? Na stage. Those who are successful during this phase or stage will feel that they are contributing to the world by being active in their home and community. Those who fail to attain this skill will feel unproductive and involved in the world. They are characterized by apathy, self-doubt, pseudo-intimacy, or self-absorption. Okay. The generativity versus stagnation stage is also known as passing experience to the next generation, lost self-concern stage. Okay, and the last is integrity versus despair, or the old age. As you can see, it is here, this is the retirement stage, for those who are working, so ages 65 to death. Okay. In here, people who accept themselves conclude that they only have one life to live. Live it as well as possible and have few regrets and are seen as having integrity. So, you only live once. Ito yung mga stages na gusto na nilang uh, mag, mag-tour around the world, no? Kumain ng mga gusto nilang kainin, and so on. This phase occurs during old age and is focused on reflecting back on life. So, more on, ano ba yung nagawa kong mabuti, pagkakamali, uh, how were, how did I overcome those challenges and celebrates those achievements or triumphs, in life. Those who are unsuccessful during this phase will feel that their life has been wasted and will experience many regrets. So bitter sa life. The individual will be left with feelings of bitterness and despair. Those who feel proud of their accomplishment will feel a sense of integrity. Proud sila sa kanilang sarili, sa kanilang contribution to the world. Successfully completing this phase means looking back with few regrets and a general feeling of satisfaction. These individuals will attain wisdom even when confronting death. So, they accept responsibility for the way they have lived and accept finality of death. So, integrity versus despair is characterized with wisdom or as wisdom stage. Okay. That is all. That is the discussion for the psychosocial development stage of Erikson. Have a great day. Let's discuss learning. So learning, what is learning? Learning is a relatively permanent change in behavior or the potential to make a response that occurs is a result of experience. So, operant conditioning. So, let us try to discuss operant conditioning in view of learning. Classical versus operant conditioning. Classical conditioning, if you can still recall, is also known as respondent conditioning. So, classical conditioning uses reflexive behavior that occurs as an automatic response to two or more stimuli that come before the behavior. While operant conditioning uses operant or voluntary behavior that is shaped by consequences that come after the behavior. So what is then operant conditioning? Operant conditioning is also known as instrumental conditioning. It is an organism that operates on its environment to produce a change. Edward Thorndike studied the behavior of hungry animals by placing them in a small chamber he called a puzzle box. So let us try to check operant conditioning in relation to Edward Thorndike experiment. The law of effect is Thorndike's view that reinforcers promote learning, whereas punishers lead to the unlearning of responses. So, learning were frequency of a behavior that depends on the consequence that follows that behavior. So, operant conditioning talks on reinforcement, punishments, and sanctions. So, the law of effect by Edward Thorndike. He was the author of the law of effect. Behaviors for him with favorable consequence will occur more frequently. So, those behaviors which were reinforced by significant persons will be favorable and will be done frequently. But those behaviors with unfavorable consequence will occur less frequently. So it means to say that if punishment will occur, there is less response or less behaviors, no, na gagawin ng isang tao. Say for example, for this puzzle box, the cat is placed in the box with a food reward outside. So there are certain apparatus that Thorndike used. Although learning is not immediate, the hungry cat eventually learns that pressing on the lever will result in getting out of the box and being able to reach the food. So, ito yung conditioning na ginagamit ni Thorndike. It means to say na if the cat doesn't know how to go out, he will, or the cat will not receive a reward. No? Masanction siya kasi hindi siya makakalabas. But if he learns to press the lever, then the cat can get the food. That is reinforcement. So, that's the theory of law of effect by Edward L. Thorndike. Next is B.F. Skinner, or Barhus Frederick Skinner. He is an American psychologist born in Pennsylvania in March 20, 1904. He died August 18, 1990. His father was a lawyer and his mother stayed home to care for Skinner and his younger brother. He was best known for developing the theory of behaviorism. So, behaviorism focuses on how behavior determines an individual's personality. So, B.F. Skinner believed that internal factors like thoughts, emotions, and beliefs could not be used to explain behavior. Instead, said that new behaviors were actively chosen by the organism. So, para sa kanya, hindi siya naniwala sa study ni cognitive development, ni John Piaget, and other theories on emotions, but he focuses on how the person responds to a certain behavior, certain reinforcement na binibigay sa tao. He looked at operants or active behaviors that are used on the environment to generate consequence. So to continue, he developed the fundamental principles and techniques of operant conditioning and he devised ways to apply them in the real world. So he designed the Skinner box or the operant chamber. So ito yung Skinner box na ginawa ni Skinner. So merong rat at meron yung mga ginagamit ng apparatus to explain the theory. So, terminologies. A reinforcer is an event or stimulus that increases frequency of the response that it follows. Positive reinforcers are events or stimuli such as food, water, money, and praise that are presented after the target response occurs. Negative reinforcers are events or stimuli that are removed because a response has occurred. So, say for example, if you got good grades, your parents might probably give you money or for you to shop or for you to go for a vacation. But if you get low grades, probably your parents would ban you for using cell phones, using Facebook and the like as part of the negative reinforcement. So that's how Skinner viewed things. So that reinforcement is makes a person or is a consequence that increases the likelihood of the behavior to follow. So reinforcement is always good according to Skinner. Punishment, in consequence, that increases the likelihood of the behavior it follows. And the subject determines if a consequence is reinforcing or punishing. So take note of the two terms, reinforcement and punishment. Reinforcement for Skinner is good, always good, and punishment for Skinner decreases the likelihood of the person to do the things again, or to do the behavior again. So types of reinforcement. First is positive reinforcement. This strengthens a response by presenting a stimulus that you like after a response. So anything that increases the likelihood of a behavior by following it with a desirable event or state. So the subject receives something they want, and it strengthens the behavior. Say for example, the behavior it follows by a response. So if you can see, the picture shows that a child or a son presents his report card to his father, and the father give positive reinforcement with which is giving the son money to buy for his needs. So that is positive reinforcement. Negative reinforcement, on the other hand, strengthens a response by reducing or removing an aversive stimulus. So anything that increases the likelihood of a behavior by following it with the removal of an undesirable event or state. So something the subject doesn't like is removed, but it strengthens the response. So it could either be negative reinforcement, could either be escape or avoid. So in the scenario, behavior ends in a desirable event or state. Taking aspirin relieves headaches and makes it more likely that aspirin will be taken in the future. No, so negative reinforcement. In the picture, uh, the woman experienced headache, therefore she uses rather medicine to relieve the pain. And this reinforcement will probably happen in the future as the woman experience again headache. So that is negative reinforcement. The strengthening of the behavior, no, uh, which is that ends in the undesirable event or state. So positive and negative reinforcement. They are, according to Skinner, both good things. Punishment, on the other hand, is one also of the concept introduced by Skinner, of which he considered it as bad. Types of punishment. These are undesirable event following a behavior. Behavior ends a desirable event or state. Its effect is opposite that of reinforcement. It decreases the frequency of behavior. So take note, it decreases the frequency of behavior. So positive punishment. For Skinner, he discussed positive punishment.